this story of Haiti. It was not a case that you were involved with. Tell us about that.
The Haiti earthquake came and I got a call and the mom was on the phone and I've got an adopted 2-year-old. She's at the God's Little Angels orphanage in Haiti. Everything's crushed. People are dead. These kids are running around. There's no food. There's no water. Everything is happening. Can you do something? What do? You can't say no. Okay, we'll do whatever we can. And then we wanted to get jets to go down and get kids that had been legitimately adopted in Haiti back to their parents in the United States. There were bidding wars for planes, and we raised so much money. Every child got back to the United States for free. Every child.
How many kids are we talking about here?
750.
Here with me today is Beth Klein, one of the nation's top trial attorneys. You're part of a team that's been working the last 10 years to get a bill that was just signed into law by the president. You've been named one of the top 50 most powerful women in the world that you want on your side, with people like Oprah and Michelle Obama, and just a powerhouse in fighting for victims and human trafficking. But you do so much more. I mean, what do you tell people you do at a cocktail party?
I tell them exactly what I do, and that's I use my powers for good. I have a life commitment to the health, safety, and well-being of all children. And that is the context from which I run my life and make my decisions, take action. And it is a magnificent way to run a life and to have all the things that you do, be consistent with that, be known for that, and have the opportunity to really solve some big problems within that world. And I love it.
That's fantastic. Is this what you always knew you wanted to do when you grew up?
Well, I knew that I wanted to be an attorney when I was 10 in 5th grade.
Okay.
And I made that decision right then and there.
Was there something happen at that time?
I went to elementary school in Colorado Springs. And back in that time, there was a lot of racial tension in our community. And we had one family who was Black, and their daughter, Vera, was my age. And Vera became my best friend. We used to spend our time at recess flying around, holding hands, running around the playground. And one day, a big bully named Scott came up and pushed Vera down. And she was so little, and she was on the ground and bleeding and crying. And I stood up to big Scott. My eyes met his belly button, and looked up at him and said, "I'm going to sue you." And he just laughed and he said, "You don't know what that even means." And he was right, I didn't. So I went home that night and I talked to our next door neighbor, Mr. Pelton. And Mr. Pelton was a highly respected attorney in Colorado Springs. And I told him what happened, told him what I said. And I said, "Did I say this? Was this wrong?" And he said, "No, the courtroom is for the little people where bullies get stopped." And I thought to myself, that's exactly what I want to do. And exactly at that time, there really were no women attorneys, period. And I didn't care. I just decided that I was going to go ahead and do what I needed to do to make sure that my friends and the people who didn't have a voice weren't exploited. And that's exactly what I've done.
That's amazing. And was it a little more difficult kind of coming in and trailblazing as a woman trial attorney?
Well, I don't know. I don't have anything to compare it to. I think it was actually pretty funny because when I became an attorney back in 1988, there just weren't really any of us. We didn't know how to dress. We didn't know how to act. Judges didn't know what to do with us. Juries didn't know what to do with us. And so what we had to do is we had to forget about being like somebody else and just really learn to be ourselves.
When you got out of law school, what was your first job as an attorney?
My first job out of law school was with a boutique insurance defense firm called Long & Jadon. And it was a premier defense firm. And we got the greatest cases that you could possibly imagine. I mean, When President Reagan was shot by John Hinckley, one of his bodyguards, Mr. Brady, was shot. And Brady brought a case against the psychologist who had been treating Mr. Hinckley, and I got to be on that defense team.
Wow.
And right out of law school, to be involved in that level of a litigation was amazing. We had the first AIDS contamination case from blood banks.
Mm-hmm.
We had the very first mass tort cases. L-tryptophan had the first mass torts in asbestos, and I worked on those cases. So it was a great opportunity, but it was a limited opportunity. That firm was not about to make a women of law partner.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was always just the idea that just do your best and get what you can out of this experience and practice forgiveness and just keep trying to do better and better and better with the things that you can control.
What happened from there? How did you come to leave that? And then did you open your own firm?
I had a baby boy, and having a child was stressful on the firm because I couldn't put in the time that I used to. And so there came a day where I needed to go, and I was fired from that job. And it's the best thing that ever happened to me. And to this day, I'm very grateful that we parted ways, and I thank them very much for that. I left that firm. I took a major client with me at 31 years old, left a firm with a Fortune 50 company as a client,
Wow.
managed the entire docket for the state of Colorado for asbestos defense, for Owens Corning fiberglass. And then I got invited to try out for their National Trial Council job. And at that time, asbestos was on the rise. The first asbestos case was filed in Texas in the 60s. And then the mesothelioma epidemic came in, and the cases just started getting more and more and more as this terrible human disaster unfolded. We had 750,000 cases pending, and this is before computers, internet, all of that. So you're managing things on paper. And so this was the very, very beginning of mass tort and mass tort management. And Owens Corning figured out, and rightly so, that there are people who are great at management.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who are great at doing depositions. There are people who are great at paperwork and brief writing. And then there are a few people who are nutty enough to walk into a courtroom and work with juries. And there are fewer people who are willing to do that Johnny on the spot. So they segmented our work, and they decided they were going to pick 5 people for their national trial team. And you had to be ready to go try a case anywhere at any time, and you'd get your case assignment on Friday night, and you'd be ready to go on Monday, anywhere in the country. So I thought that might be a really fun job to do. And so I went and tried out, and there were 2 women and like 98 men.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the spot.
That's awesome. So let's talk about this bill that we got signed into law. Can you tell me a little bit about what it is?
When the internet was begun, the idea of the internet was that everything should be free and available, and we should be able to build platforms for sharing of information, knowledge, art, all kinds of good things.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that we all thought that the internet might turn dark. It could be a place where there could be massive criminal activity, where people could be exploited, where people could be hurt online. It wasn't really part of the vision. And so in the beginning, the big platform providers like Facebook and Google, entities where third parties would post online, they were granted complete immunity. So they had no responsibility whatsoever for anything that was posted on their platform. And as we began to see in the human trafficking world, children were being sold on Backpage. We know that over 140 kids that were on the missing and exploited list, people that the FBI were looking for, children the FBI were looking for, were being sold, and somebody was swiping a credit card and paying for not only the right to post on this, but also for these children. So there had to be a way where there would be more responsibility for ISP providers. And that was the law that we wanted to change, so that people can't post terrorism videos. People can't, advertise a child for sale. People can't harm everybody online. Where there's third party, you're now responsible for the content. And that wasn't the thinking when we were starting this law, but we were thinking about those kids that we didn't want to see sold. And they're young. They were young kids. And that was in my head. And so we tried a lot of different ways. Sheriff Dart tried to sue Backpage. Case was dismissed. They tried to sue them in Seattle. Case was absolutely dismissed because of this immunity barrier. So finally, after many, many years and building a coalition and having people realize that the internet isn't a free-for-all and that there needs to be responsibility, this law was signed into our books in January 2017. And I'm very grateful for that. And now we see providers becoming more responsible. Mm-hmm. YouTube having to track video, trying to come up with ways where really harmful communications can be stopped. And so I have no idea exactly how that's going to go forward in our society, but I think it's a good thing to control harmful communications.
And when we're talking about these young kids, are we talking about in different countries, or are we talking about here at home?
Well, most of the kids who are trafficked here are from our foster care system. Mm-hmm. Large numbers. In Denver, I keep my eye on that with the Denver Police Department and our Innocence Lost Task Force. Nearly 100% of children are from middle school. Middle school age. And you think about when you were in middle school and how confused you were. Mm-hmm. And girls are confused. And so it's a time, if you don't have a good foundation, you can really get in some trouble. Mm-hmm. We know that addiction drives this. Once you're addicted, people do anything to satisfy that need. And we're now creating more compassion around that. Before it was like, oh, just a junkie, Mm-hmm. But that's not the story of that person. When you look deeper, the story is a journey, and they need a community to help. And I see some hope in our society now that we're looking at this opioid crisis, and it is a huge community opportunity to help people that deserve it and not throw them away.
So let's keep talking about kids and an impact someone can make. I mean, this story of Haiti was not a case that you were involved with. Tell us about that.
My law firm likes to take on big projects. We like to challenge ourselves. We like to think about what we want our life to look like for the year. What would be an extraordinary thing to do? And not just for the sake of doing something extraordinary, but really practice it. And so we had designed a program where we were going to save a life a day, every day for 1 year. And how would we do that? How would we outreach? How would we resource this thing? We're really committed to intervening and helping somebody every day in a big way. And then the Haiti earthquake came about 3 weeks into our project. And I got a call, and the mom was on the phone, and I've got an adopted 2-year-old. She's at the God's Little Angels orphanage in Haiti. Everything's crushed. People are dead. These kids are running around. There's no food. There's no water. There are all kinds of diseases, violence. Everything is happening. Can you do something? What do? You can't say no. Okay, we'll do whatever we can. And then you could tell in the world that everybody wanted to help. You could feel it. Everybody wanted to be there. Everybody wanted to help children. Everybody wanted to help people in Haiti. And just starting to talk about that project and putting a post on my Facebook page that we wanted to get jets to go down and get kids that had been legitimately adopted in Haiti back to their parents in the United States. Working with CENTCOM, which was the military operation department that was in charge of that particular zone, working with people from the Pentagon to figure out how you could get legitimate identification, get kids across the border, finding people who would help walk babies across the border in Miami and Texas, making sure that there were long-term care for all these brand new instant families that got created, surprise, right overnight, dealing with children who just watched lots and lots of people die and who are afraid to be inside, afraid of ceilings, and never been on a plane. And just making public that you're a resource and access point for everybody to participate. I mean, there were bidding wars for planes, and we raised so much money. Every child got back to the United States for free. Every child.
How many kids are we talking about here?
750. Every child's family, they had an opportunity with the Kemp Foundation to have counseling for becoming an instant family and how you deal with all this trauma. And just the number of people that wanted to participate, it was just a flood of human beings wanting to be good. They wanted to donate money. They wanted to donate planes. They wanted to donate time. They wanted to do whatever it took to make sure that this got completed and done right. And that's exactly what happened.
What did it feel like when that first plane touched down?
Well, I watched it on television and I was just absolutely wrecked. I was so happy. And watching the children come off the plane, they were so scared. And America smells different than other countries. We have an antiseptic smell to our air. And watching kids come up and, smell the air and just their eyes are so big, and just knowing that they have no earthly idea what amazing opportunity just opened up for them. Their life was going to be so different. And most of those kids have committed to go back to Haiti and do something good for their communities. They didn't lose touch with their people. And I think that is so important, always to go back to your people, to your community, your parents, your neighborhoods. And if you've got a great gift, like a law degree or an opportunity to live in America, going back and giving back, it's just makes your life extraordinary.
Do you feel like a real life superhero?
No.
No?
No.
Why not?
Because all I know is that I spark action in other people to do extraordinary things. And so I guess I look at myself as like a Johnny Appleseed, which, going around and sprinkling inspiration isn't that difficult, but I think it's needed. And I love that.
I mean, with everything you've done, do you feel like you've changed the world?
No, I feel like I have inspired other people to gather, and that only together does the tipping point happen. There are other people who are as inspiring, if not more so than me. And the more that we can work together, the more that gets done. No one does anything by themselves at all.
What word of advice would you give someone who wants to go out there and help change the world?
Get off your butt. And if you want to do it, then figure out exactly where you want to be in 10 years, map it backwards, and take your first step.
Take the first step. I love that. Well, Beth, thank you. I know you've inspired me today, and just the millions of people that are out there as well, too, to literally just decide that you're going to do something and then, just make that next little step. It's been wonderful for me, eye-opening, life-changing, so thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for making this happen.